Are you a real estate investor looking to start your first flip? Are you a passive investor looking for the next opportunity? Regardless of your situation, our mission is to help everyone work towards their unique version of financial freedom. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Conduit Capital Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Barreau, and the topic of today's podcast is Where's My Money? So for the next few podcasts, we're going to be talking about the fund side of Conduit Capital and funds in general, talking about the different things that you should be looking for when you're investing in a fund, and also how Conduit Capital kind of falls into that as an example. So when you invest in a fund, obviously, you're wiring your money or mailing in a check to these people, and it's important to know what the purpose your money will serve in this investment. So the fund docs that you sign, whether it be a private placement memorandum or whatever the fund offers, it should tell you what the money will be used for. So in Conduit Capital's case, we use the investments, the funds from our investors for real estate investments. So we lend money to real estate investors who are flipping homes or growing their rental portfolio. The nature of our loans they're very short term, so a year term max. And we're looking to lend the same money to the same people over and over again. So while one big aspect of our business is raising capital and adding lenders into our network, it's also growing our network of borrowers, finding people that we can trust to lend money to. I always tell people our goal at Conduit Capital is to create win-win-win situations for all people involved. So when we meet borrowers, we want to find people that are trustworthy, that have good credit and good background, and we want to lend the money to those people over and over again, making sure that they have good deals for us that have enough profit for our borrowers, because if our borrowers don't make money, then our fund doesn't make money. And if our fund doesn't make money, then our investors don't make money either. So there's kind of this chain reaction domino effect when it comes to our fund. And so we really take pride in being good stewards of our investors' money, and that really starts with finding those borrowers that we trust. You need to figure out what the company you're investing in is all about. So funds are businesses too. They're set up as entities. Conduit Capital is an LLC, and businesses need to make money to survive. So this is kind of going off of that win-win-win scenario. A great question you can ask people before you invest with them is, how does your company make money? And if they come back and say, oh, well, we're actually not making money, then you might want to think twice before giving them your hard-earned cash, because if they're not making money, how on earth are you going to make money? Furthermore, you want to see that companies have many different ways of making money. So it's not this super slim margin where it's kind of like a toss-up every month. Hey, maybe I'll receive my monthly payment or my quarterly distribution. Maybe I won't. In Conduit Capital's case, we don't charge the people that lend us money anything. All of the money that Conduit Capital makes comes from the fees that we charge our borrowers. So we have advisory fees, processing fees, application fees, late fees, extension fees, as well as we make a spread on the interest that we pay out to our investors. So Conduit Capital has a lot of ways of making money beyond just the spread on the interest that we pay our investors. Furthermore, ensuring that we're able to pay our investors every month, a big emphasis that we put on our borrowers is making sure that those interest payments are on time every month. And our team is super dedicated to following up and servicing the loans that we fund with our investors' money. Let's see here. Another important thing that you need to ask yourself is what type of fund, what type of investment is it? So two types of funds. It could be a debt fund or it could be an equity fund. Conduit Capital is a debt fund, meaning that you're just getting straight interest payments from us. So in an equity fund, there may be things like profit sharing, where if the fund does really well, you kind of get to reap the rewards of that. In a debt fund like Conduit Capital, you lend us your money, we pay you interest, and when you're done with our investment, if you no longer want to invest with us anymore at the end of 2 years, you can take your money out and you get your principal back at the end of that. There are some funds where maybe it's a super long-term play, like a 5 to 7 year play, where you give them your principal and maybe the return is so good that over those 7 years you end up making more than your principal. So when the fund dissolves, you've made all your money back and there's no money due back to you at the end of that. It's really important that you ask those questions up front, because you'd hate to get involved in an investment where you're putting up a large chunk of money only to find out that, oh, well, you're not really going to make that money back for another 5 to 7 years if that's not something you're prepared for, or if that's not how you're catering your investments. Vice versa, maybe you want that money out and doing its thing for a long time, and so getting involved in an investment like Conduit Capital where you're getting those monthly interest payments is not appealing to you. So just as an investor, it's always important to ask yourself, again, what are your goals, and does this investment help you reach those goals? Another important question to ask or something to consider is, when does the investment start? So obviously you wire your money to these people, you deploy capital, but when does that capital actually start working? There are some places out there that maybe you give them your funds and they deploy them, or they put them aside for a project that's going to start in the next 6 months. So really your money's kind of going to be sitting there for the next 6 months until it gets put into use. With Conduit Capital, when you wire us your funds, because of the deal flow that we get from our awesome borrowers, we're almost able to deploy those funds within the next 2 weeks. For our fund investors, we start paying interest on month 2. So the day I'm recording this is February 22nd. Hope that doesn't break the fourth wall of when I record these things. But if you were to invest with Conduit Capital on February 22nd, your capital, and actually I want to preface this before I go into it, this is as of February 22nd, 2024. If you're watching this in the future, I can't guarantee that these are exactly the same. So always, if you're in contact with me, please reach out and ask. If you were to invest with us on February 22nd, you would start accruing interest on March 1st. And your first interest payment would be on April 15th. So it's basically starting month 2 of the investment is when you would receive your first payment from us. I've heard horror stories of investors investing in funds and they don't even think to ask, hey, when is my first payment? Or maybe in the loan documents, it's not even outlined in there. That's kind of a scary thought, because if the payment schedule isn't outlined in your private placement memorandum that you sign with your investment provider, theoretically, they could pay you whenever they want. There's so many great investment products out there and so many great people providing them. And I'm the type of person that I really want to do a lot of handshake agreements. Just it's my nature, to be very trusting. But after kind of being in this world for a while, I've realized that although those personal relationships are so important, you need documentation that both parties are agreeing to. Even if you have a history of investing together, even if they're a great person, you need that documentation binding you. So this thing of the payment schedule, making sure that it's in your documents, so important, regardless of your level of trust with the person. Because if they fall on tough times, payments could be switched up, and you don't have a leg to stand on if there was nothing in your paperwork explicitly outlining that. The final thing I want to talk about regarding where's your money or what's it doing is is the fund a blind fund, or is it for a specific use? There are some funds out there that the money they raise is for specific projects. So maybe it's like large apartment buildings or large building developments, and so they're building this pool of money for this specific asset. And then there are other funds that are called blind funds, or they're basically a giant pool of money that's spread across many different assets. So that's how Conduit Capital is structured. We're a blind fund. So when you deploy funds with us, that money is deployed across all of the different loans that we have going at one time. And the benefit of this, in my eyes, is that, it's being not tied to one specific asset. You're kind of covering the damages. If you're lending on a big apartment building and something goes wrong, that money's tied up for a long time. And if there's quarterly distributions, that's really going to hold you up. In our case, your money is spread across many different properties. I believe right now we have 36 active loans. So your money's spread across all those different ones, and if there's one underperforming property, it's covered by the rest of them. So a little bit more of a peace of mind with our fund. But I hope that answered some questions you may have about where your money's located, what your money's doing when you deploy with investors, with fund providers. If I missed anything or if I can elaborate more on something in the future, feel free to leave a comment and let us know kind of what more you want to talk about. But until next time, that's all I have. Make sure to like and follow us on social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We love hearing feedback, like I said, about different topics you want to hear about, and I will see all of you next time. Remember to be a conduit and not a bucket. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to stay up to date with all of our latest content, please follow us on social media. You can find us on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at Conduit Capital Podcast. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to send us a message, leave a comment, or share your thoughts with us.